Good afternoon and Salam Idul Fitri. I'm Brennan Lepal and you're watching Updates at Noon. Making the headlines. High-tech innovation considered to increase border surveillance. And also MACC Academy landslide not caused by natural factors. The Home Ministry, KDN, is currently exploring the possibility of using technology and innovation-based systems, including artificial intelligence, AI, like drones, when uniformed bodies carry out their duties along the borders of the country. Home Minister Datuk Seri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail said this is to curb cross-border criminal activities such as drug and human trafficking, as well as illegal crossings by immigrants. Datuk Seri Saifuddin also said the government lacks the resources to build the new fencing along the border of Malaysia-Thailand, especially in Kedah and Perlis, due to the long distance involved. So the country must explore several other initiatives, including more CCTVs, gates at strategic entry points, and more security personnel stationed at the country's borders.
Aspek kawalan sempadan, dia harus berupa gabungan kepada pelbagai inisiatif. Dia ada physical omnipresence. Satu, dia kena ada struktur yang sedia ada sekarang dalam bentuk pagar yang sedia ada. Okey, dua. Kemudian kita kata lagi CCTV dalam poin strategik. Tiga. Jadi ke depan nanti kita kata bahawa munasabah untuk kita explore atau meneroka inovasi seumpama kawalan sempadan yang berasaskan penggunaan drone. Objektif besar dia apa dia? Keselamatan negara mesti terkawal dan terjaga.
He was speaking to reporters after celebrating Hari Raya Idul Fitri and giving out contributions at the General Operations Force (PGA) Tactical Camp in Bukit Kayu Hitam yesterday. In another news, Datuk Seri Saifuddin said the Malaysia Madani Idul Fitri Open House with the Prime Minister, slated to be held in 6 states, starting with Kedah on 29th April, will not be a waste, rather than an effort to celebrate and feed the people in conjunction with Idul Fitri. He added that the provision of food such as ketupat and lemang, as well as satay at the open houses, does not involve excessive costs.
Rumah terbuka nak sambut raya dengan rakyat tu saya kira sangatlah kan. Apa sangat nak jamu ketupat lemang kat rakyat. Rakyat Kedah lah tu kan. Jadi tak ada isu lah. Ketupat lemang Mbazi apa? Nak jamu ketupat lemang. Tak mana Mbazi tu? Ketupat apa duit? Janganlah lemang. Pasal kemah sikit, dia kita main lagu raya tak apa duit pun kan.
He was commenting on report quoting Kedah Menteri Besar Datuk Seri Mohammad Sanusi Mat Noor as saying that the open houses were part of programs held in view of the upcoming state elections and should not be organised. The Menteri Besar was also quoted as saying that the programs would involve high costs despite the federal government's austerity drive and proposed for it to be held just in Putrajaya as usual. The landslide that occurred in front of the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Academy at Persiaran Tunku site Sirajuddin yesterday, believed to have been caused by stagnant water and a broken underground pipe next to the entrance to the academy. Central Police Chief ACP Begen Lai said analysis carried out by the Public Works Department JKR Slope Forensic Unit found that the stagnant water outside the entrance was possibly due to heavy rain over the past 3 days.
Jadi disebabkan hujan lebat sebentar tadi, jadi kerja-kerja penilaian terpaksa diberhentikan serta-merta kerana keadaan agak bahaya. Kita bimbang tanda runtuh ataupun hakisan akan berterusan dan juga mungkin mendatangkan bahaya kepada nyawa penilai. Disebabkan kawasan sekitar ni ada pokok-pokok yang tinggi, hujan lebat, kita juga bimbang dahan pokok akan runtuh dan timpa pada pondok atau kemah PKTK. Jadi kita juga sentiasa elaklah memastikan tiada lagi tanda runtuh berlaku.
38 Academy personnel and 38 others at the Malaysian Institute of Integrity, IIM, which is next door, had been evacuated. There were no injuries or fatalities reported, however. Several cars were trapped in the academy area as a landslide involved the only entry and exit route to the academy. Meanwhile, Works Minister Datuk Seri Alexander Nandalinggi said no natural factors have been identified as the cause of the landslide. In a post on his Facebook account, the minister said, based on preliminary investigations by the Public Works Department, JKR, Slope Department, a leak in the underground water pipe most likely caused the landslide. He said the department is currently conducting a detailed investigation and urged for everyone's cooperation in following the authorities' instructions to avoid any untoward incidents and hope that the real cause of the landslide will be found quickly. The Malaysian Anti-Corruption Academy has emptied its entire premises and transferred 45 people following the incidents. The Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, MACC, said in a statement that 22 officers, 16 cleaning crew and 7 quarters residents, including families of officers, were moved to a safe area until the affected area is declared safe. The Academy is asking the public to not speculate and to give the authorities the opportunity to investigate the cause of the landslide. Meanwhile, Malaysian Institute of Integrity, IIM, has instructed its personnel to work from home. IIM, in a statement last night, said the directive was for security reasons and would be in effect until a date to be announced later. The application for enrollment of pupils into Year 1 for the 2024-2025 academic session will be open from 2nd May to 30th June. The Ministry of Education, MOE, in a Facebook post last night said that registration can be done online through the Ministry of Education's Integrated System Public Management module at the address as shown on the screen. It said the application was open to Malaysian citizens born from the 2nd of January of 2017 to the 1st of January 2018. The registration procedure was also shared in the post. A newlywed couple have to have their honeymoon in the lockup after being arrested at Chikus near Langkap, Ipoh on suspicion of drug trafficking. The newlyweds, aged 23 and 24, were arrested by the Narcotics Crime Investigation Division team of the Hilir Perak District Police Headquarters at 12:30 p.m. yesterday. Hilir Perak Police Chief ACP Ahmad Adnan Basri said they were arrested along with 20 plastic packages of suspected drugs worth 77,000 ringgit. Police also seized a suitcase suspected of containing heroin weighing 9.268 kilograms. The drug is believed to be for distribution outside Hilir Perak and can supply nearly 10,000 addicts. The bride and groom were waiting for customers in the mosque parking lot when they were arrested. They were also tested positive for methamphetamine. The two, who got married on Monday, are unemployed and police are tracking other syndicate members. A remand order against the suspects will be made tomorrow and the case is being investigated under Section 39B of the Dangerous Drugs Act 1952 and Section 15, Subsection 1, Subsection A of the same Act. Sudan unrest pauses following 72 hours ceasefire. That and more coming up in the foreign segment. Stay tuned.
Jalinkan uhuah, raikan kesatuan di Syawal yang mulia. Majlis Rumah Terbuka Malaysia Madani bersama Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri buat julung-julung kali diadakan di negeri Kedah, iaitu pada hari Sabtu 29 April 2023 bermula pukul 10 pagi hingga 2 petang di Hotel Raya Alostar, Kedah. Orang ramai dijemput hadir dan perkhidmatan bas disediakan.
And welcome back. A U.S. brokered ceasefire in Sudan appears to be partially holding, but there is no sign the warring parties are ready to seriously negotiate. The UN Special Envoy on Sudan, Volker Perthes, said this is suggesting, quote, that both think that securing a military victory over the other is possible. Fighting broke out between the Sudan Armed Forces (SAHIH) and paramilitary Rapid Support Forces (RSF) on 15 April. Both parties agreed to a 72-hour ceasefire beginning on Tuesday after negotiations mediated by the United States and Saudi Arabia. Perthes said they are holding in some parts so far. However, he said they received a continuing reports of fighting and movement of troops in other parts. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres described the violence and chaos in Sudan as heartbreaking, adding that the power struggle puts Sudan's future at risk and could cause suffering for years and setback development for decades. The United Nations has moved hundreds of staff and family members to Port Sudan from Khartoum. The death toll among followers of a Kenyan cult who believed they would go to heaven if they starved themselves has risen to 89 as more shallow graves were revealed amid ongoing exhumations in an 800-acre area of the Shakahola forest. Kenya's Interior Minister Kithure Kindiki called for the group's leader to spend the rest of his life in prison and that anyone who assisted should also face the harshest penalties under the law. Most of the dead were recovered from shallow graves, while a small number were found alive and emaciated but later died. Kindiki said 3 more people had been rescued alive, bringing the total number of survivors found so far to 34. However, the death toll could rise further. Kindiki added that the crimes committed by the cult leader were serious enough to warrant terrorism charges. According to 3 sources close to the investigation, the majority of the dead were children, highlighting the macabre nature of the cult's alleged practices, which included urging parents to starve their offspring. The Kenyan Red Cross said more than 200 people had been reported as missing to a tracing and counseling desk it has set up at a local hospital. Kenya's Office of the Director of Public Prosecution said preliminary investigation showed that the suspects might have committed crimes including murder, radicalization and threatening public safety. The cult's leader, Paul Mackenzie, was arrested on 14 April following a tip-off, and another 14 cult members are in custody. Former workers at the Chernobyl power plant held a candlelight vigil to mark 37 years since the nuclear disaster. 26 April marks 37 years since Chernobyl, the world's worst nuclear disaster, which brought death, misery, and radioactive contamination to a swathe of Eastern Europe. The infamous plant once again made headlines after being captured by Russian forces during an invasion of Ukraine which began on 24 February. Following weeks of fighting across the country, the power plant, now officially known as Chernobyl in Ukraine, swapped hands back to the Ukrainians in April last year after Russian soldiers pulled out from their attempt to take the capital, Kyiv. The disaster in then Soviet Ukraine sent clouds of nuclear material across much of Europe after a botched safety test in the 4th reactor of the atomic plant. The accident killed 31 people instantly and forced tens of thousands to flee. Up to 115,000 people are thought to have died of radiation-related illnesses such as cancer, though estimates vary. The nuclear plant and Pripyat, the abandoned town that neighbors it, had become a major tourist destination before the war. British American Tobacco has agreed to pay more than $600 million to settle charges it sold cigarette materials to North Korea for years in violation of U.S. sanctions. In the most severe action ever taken by U.S. authorities against a company for breaking North Korea's sanctions, BAT's Singapore subsidiary also agreed to plead guilty to felony charges of bank fraud and sanctions breaking. The Justice Department said that over 2007 to 2017, BAT operated a web of front and shell companies to supply North Korea's cigarette makers, despite knowing sanctions placed on Pyongyang over its development of nuclear weapons. In 2007, BAT's standing committee, including top company executives in London, approved the scheme, quote, due to concerns over its public association with North Korea and difficulty remitting profits out of the country. According to charges, besides trading with North Korea, the BAT operation routed dollar payments from trade through US banks, masking the origins of the funds. The Justice Department said BAT's Singapore subsidiary, quote, maintain control over all relevant aspects of North Korean business. And even though the company moved to pull out of the setup in 2016 due to the increasing international sanctions on Pyongyang, it continued to sell cigarettes to North Korea's embassy in Singapore in 2017. The company, which has already set aside $540 million to cover the settlement, said it will have no impact on its financial guidance to investors for 2023, adding that it ended its activities with North Korea in 2017. And still to come in sports, Arsenal set for top of the league clash with Man City. Stay with us. Competing against multiple Olympians and some of the best swimmers in the world in the United Kingdom has helped national swimmer Brian Leong Sin Ren to raise his speed to face the upcoming SEA Games and World Championships. The 20-year-old, who missed out on the medals in his SEA Games debut in the 2019 Philippines edition and last year in Hanoi, said the podium is within reach this time, although he will be up against regional greats in Phnom Penh from the 5th to 17 May. Brian, who holds the men's 50-meter freestyle and 100-meter butterfly national records, will be competing in the 50-meter freestyle, 50-meter breaststroke, 50-meter butterfly, 100-meter butterfly, and 4x100-meter medley in Phnom Penh. Although winning a medal is a goal, Brian said his primary objective at the SEA Games is to deliver his best performances and achieve a personal best. The undergraduate in neuroscience and psychology at the King's College London also hopes to fare well on the global stage, as he has qualified for the 2023 World Aquatics Championship in Fukuoka, Japan from 23rd to 30th July. The 2022 Birmingham Commonwealth Games semi-finalist in the 100-meter butterfly is eyeing to dip below 53 seconds in the event to improve on his own national record. The national sepak takraw team have been told not to take lightly the challenge posed by Cambodia in the men's regu team event at the 2023 SEA Games. National head coach Ahmad Jayas Baharun believed that Cambodia's move in hiring a Thai coach to guide the home team could well make it tough for defending champions Thailand and Malaysia in the men's regu team event, which has attracted only 3 entries. As Thailand are the favourites this time, Ahmad Jayas wants his charges to go all out and give a good fight to the Thais, who beat Malaysia 2-0 in the 2021 SEA Games final in Hanoi. Last Sunday, the Cambodia SEA Games Organising Committee, in a letter to Asian Sepak Takraw Federation, President Dato Abdul Halim Kadir confirmed that the regu team event would still be held in the SEA Games, although there are fewer than 4 entries. The Asian Sepak Takraw Federation in a statement said the regu team event would be played on a round-robin format, as fewer than 5 countries will be taking part. Ahmad Jayas said the national team had entered their final phase of training at the National Sports Council in Bukit Jalil and would leave for Cambodia on 8 May. Apart from the regu team, the national men's squad will also participate in the regu and doubles events, while the women's team will feature in the quadrant and team doubles events. And in English football, Erling Haaland's incredible goal record at Manchester City sets him apart from all other players this season. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta said ahead of Wednesday's top-of-the-table Premier League clash at the Etihad Stadium. Haaland leads the league's goal-scoring charge with 32 goals, 8 more than Tottenham Hotspur's Harry Kane in second, and 12 more than Brentford's Ivan Toney, who is third on the list. The Norway international is only one short of breaking Liverpool forward Mohamed Salah's record for the most goals scored in a 38-game Premier League season. His total haul this campaign stands at 48 goals in 42 games across all competitions for City, including 12 in the Champions League.
Well, when you look at the numbers, there's no comparison with anybody else, but this as well, he's able to produce that because the setup is done in the right way for him, the players that he got around him, the way he's coached, obviously the qualities that he has. So it's a lot of things that have to be in their way, and they have, even with him, a capacity to play in different ways.
Arsenal play away to City on Wednesday, hoping to regain their grip on the title race after securing draws in their last 3 games. Asked how he would stop Haaland if he had to, Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola divulged no team secrets, except to say it would be tough. Arsenal's lead over City has reduced to 5 points after their recent slump, and they have played 2 more games than Pep Guardiola's side. Chelsea manager Frank Lampard stressed that there is little time to solve the club's big difficulties as he looks for his first win since taking over in interim charge. Chelsea, who are 11th in the league standings and at risk of their worst domestic league finish in nearly 30 years, will look to end their 7-game winless run in all competitions against Brentford.
Good afternoon. I wouldn't expect anything in football, but I think it's very clear that we're coming to this club when it's in big difficulties. We had 1 day to prepare for Wolves, 2 games against Real Madrid. The second performance was much better, and it was a proper team performance like I'd want to see. And the game in between that with Brighton, where we had to change a lot of the squad. So there were a lot of factors as to the 4 games that we've had since we've been working here.
Chelsea are 5 points behind their West London rivals, who have played a game more, as Lampard seeks for his first win since returning to Stamford Bridge following Graham Potter's departure. Chelsea have nothing left to play for this season, with qualifying for Europe a tough task, while Lampard said motivating players would not be a problem. And moving on to tennis, flags of Russia and Belarus will be banned from this year's Wimbledon Championships, while several players from the 2 countries have already signed personal declarations that will clear them to compete as neutrals, the All England club said on Tuesday. Wimbledon announced last month that it had lifted its ban, which prevented athletes from the 2 countries playing last year following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Speaking at the club's pre-tournament spring media conference, club chairman Ian Hewitt said the U-turn had been the hardest decision of his 4 years in the job. Wimbledon and the other British grass court tournaments stood alone in barring Russian and Belarusian players such as former world number 1s Daniil Medvedev and Victoria Azarenka last year. The decision resulted in ranking points being stripped from the events and the Lawn Tennis Association being hit with huge fines by the ATP and WTA. To compete this year, Russian and Belarusian players must agree to compete as neutrals, not to make statements supporting the war or the regimes involved, and not to receive funding from either nation or state-supported businesses. And in motorsport, Formula One approved a shake-up to the sprint format yesterday in time for this weekend's Azerbaijan Grand Prix in Baku, which stages the first of the season's 6 sprints. The 100-kilometer dash becomes a standalone event on the Saturday of race weekends. A shortened qualifying version will be held in the morning of the approximately 30-minute race to define the starting order for the sprint first, introduced in 2021. Qualifying for Sunday's Grand Prix will now be held on Friday, the traditional 3-session qualifying preceded by a first practice session. The shake-up was given the green light by the teams at the Australian Grand Prix at the start of the month, with the changes rubber-stamped by the FIA's F1 Commission yesterday. Up to now, the 3 sprints held in 2021 and last year have shaped the grid for Sunday's main events. Teams and Formula One believe the revised race weekend will now give Saturday's action added excitement to fans, with the doing away of the often less than enthralling second practice session. Saturday's qualifying will be known as the Sprint Shootout, with the first qualifying session, or Q1, running for 12 minutes, Q2 for 10 minutes, and Q3 for 8 minutes. F1 hopes that with its new standalone status, drivers will have an added incentive, quote, to go for it, knowing any incidents will not have a bearing on where they start in the Grand Prix. Rania Debats and the El Morabiti brothers are leading the Marathon des Ablers after the second stage on Monday. This is the 37th edition of the Ultra Marathon in the Moroccan Sahara Desert, which consists of 6 stages and approximately 250 kilometers of running. In the women's elite race, Debats won the first and second stages. She finished the 31.7 kilometer second stage 17 minutes ahead of Marilyn Nakache and 36 minutes ahead of Aziza El Amrani. The men's elite race is being dominated by the El Morabiti brothers, Rachid and Mohammed. Rachid won the first stage, while Mohammed came first in the second stage. Rachid, 9-time winner of the event, is leading the race overall ahead of Mohammed and Aziz Yacho. 1,054 competitors took part in the second stage of the marathon. 20 dropped out after the first stage and a dozen more were unable to start on the morning of the second stage due to extreme tiredness. The third stage will see the runners race 34.4 kilometers.
Jalinkan uhuah, raikan kesatuan di Syawal yang mulia. Majlis Rumah Terbuka Malaysia Madani bersama Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri buat julung-julung kali diadakan di negeri Kedah, iaitu pada hari Sabtu 29 April 2023 bermula pukul 10 pagi hingga 2 petang di Hotel Raya Alostar, Kedah. Orang ramai dijemput hadir dan perkhidmatan bas disediakan. Dalam kita membangunkan aplikasi yang memberi kesejahteraan kepada negara, ada yang menyalahgunakannya. Sejak kebelakangan ini, terdapat peningkatan ketara dalam penyebaran maklumat atau berita palsu yang boleh menimbulkan kekeliruan dan kegusaran di kalangan masyarakat. Ancaman berita palsu tanpa verifikasi sumber, fakta dan maklumat memberi impak serta implikasi negatif kepada rakyat dan negara. Sebarang penyebaran berita palsu akan dikenakan tindakan undang-undang serta didakwa mengikut Seksyen 505 Kanun Kesiksaan dan Seksyen 233 Akta Komunikasi dan Multimedia 1998. Denda maksimum RM50,000 atau penjara tidak melebihi 1 tahun atau kedua-duanya dan juga denda selanjutnya setiap hari kesalahan berjumlah RM1,000. Bersama, cegah berita palsu. Sebar fakta, bukan dusta. Tidak pasti, jangan kongsi.
And that's it from us, wrapping up with a recap of our top story. High-tech innovation considered to increase border surveillance. Tune into Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Brenda Lepal. Stay tuned to TV2 and Salam Malaysia Madani.
Selamat Hari Raya.